Hello and welcome. Today we're going to make these cute little matchbook treat holders that have room just for one little snack, kind of like a Ghirardelli chocolate square or these Ferrero Rocher. And I'm going to be using the set called Jar of Joy with the coordinating punch that punches out the jar and the lid. There's also a set from Stampin' Up called Sweet Jar, and that's where I got the little sentiment from that we're going to be using. So I'm going to show you how I did the one with the gingerbread. These make just really nice, very quick, easy little treats that you can hand out. Maybe, you know, since it's last minute, it's pretty close to Christmas right now, you can hand them out to coworkers or, you know, little random acts of kindness if you want to even slip some cash in there as a tip for a server or your hairstylist or something like that. They just make a nice little treat that you can, you know, slip in your bag and take with you and just kind of hand them out as needed. So let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start by stamping the main focal point of our little jar. And like I said, with the Jar of Joy, you get the outline of the jar and the lid, and then we're going to be doing the gingerbread man or the cookies that go inside the jar. So you get two different layers here, and I'll show you how I stamped them to make them fit inside the jar. And I'm going to start by just using my favorite black ink and inking up the body of the jar. And then also the lid. Okay, I do want to also point out that if you get the other set that's called Sweet Jar, it also has a jar and then a solid lid. So instead of the outline like the Jar of Joy has, you can stamp that in any color that you want versus coloring it in. Okay, all right, and then let's get the insides stamped in there. So I have Real Red and Pecan Pie, and I like to start with the Real Red that does kind of the outline of the cookies or kind of that background or accent pieces, and you just ink up your stamp. And I'm going to have to kind of get close here. When you get close to your jar, you can kind of see a couple little, like the bottom corner pieces. If you line those up with that inside of the jar, that'll usually get a nice, nice position for this. And of course, it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so I was talking about kind of those little edge corner pieces so that it looks like everything's sitting right down in the jar. And then I'll take the actual gingerbread man and the cookies and ink that up in Pecan Pie. And then what I like to do when I'm hovering kind of over the top is I try to see that little red bow tie and the two little buttons on the gingerbread man and get those lined up with this stamp. And as long as those are lined up, everything else lines up pretty nice. Okay, there we go. Get these out of the way so I don't get my fingers in them. And then we'll take the jar punch, and I like to use it upside down so I can see where I'm punching. I'm just going to line up my jar, kind of get that centered in there. And of course, then you do get that extra little lid piece, which is fine. And actually, before I punch out that lid, I'm going to color that in. And I just grabbed a gray marker. I have one of the old Stampin' Write markers. This is actually called Going Gray. It's probably 15 years old. So, you know, it really doesn't matter. You can use, you know, your alcohol inks or whatever marker you have. I wanted to do a gray lid. And I'm not doing it fancy, just a quick color. And again, get that lined up in the punch. And punch it out. Okay. Then let's make the body of the matchbook. And this is not my design. I did get these measurements from Dawn Griffith and her channel is Dawn's Stamping Thoughts. I will try to link that particular video. It was from December of 2024, so about a year ago from when I'm doing this. And I really like her measurements for this because you can get a specific amount of the bodies of this matchbook out of one sheet of cardstock without a lot of waste. And I'm going to show you that after we're done creating this. I'll show you how you can mass produce a lot of these at once and really make it quick and easy. So the body of this matchbook holder is 2 3/4 by 7 3/8. And we're going to score along the 7 3/8 side at 3 inches, 3 1/2, and 6 3/4. Okay. And then we'll want to fold on each of those lines. And then I just kind of like to use my bone folder to press those down. And they all get folded the same direction so that you can make that little body of your matchbook. Okay. And then there's the piece that goes inside that will hold your treat. So that piece is 2 3/8 by 5 3/4. And we're going to score this at 2 1/4, 2 1/2, 2 3/4, 5, 5 1/4, and 5 1/2. I'll get this out of the way. And again, so now instead of folding all of them in the same direction like we did for this, we're going to kind of go opposite directions. And I guess my best advice is to start with the end where the 3 score lines are close to the end together and make yourself an M. So the first little section is going to go down. The next section goes the opposite direction, and then the next one goes down again. So then if you look, you have an M. And then you're going to do that again, go to the next 3 score lines and make an M again. So fold down, and then the next one goes up. And the last one goes down. Okay. And then when you pull this M in, or this line, this large piece that didn't get scored will attach to that first little folded line. Okay, now I like to use really strong tape. You can use glue, but then you have to hold it a little longer. So I like to use something like tear and tape, or I have this really strong adhesive from scrapbook.com that I use, and it fits. It's 1/4 of an inch, so it fits just perfectly right along there. So I put that on there, peel the backing off. And then I have found it easiest, once I kind of get this end kind of pushed back over there, is I grab it from the top and bottom and then just bring this side right over the top, and you can usually kind of line up that long edge and you get get it lined up nicely and get it adhered. Okay. Now the next step is to get the whole treat holder attached inside the body of this. I need to grab my stapler. You can use any stapler. I'm using the tiny attacher. So what you want to do for this treat holder is push it all the way down into this crease at the bottom. So line it right up in the bottom, center it side to side the best you can, fold this bottom flap up, and then when you close this, you're going to want this top edge right here perpendicular. You know, you don't want it pushed down in too far. You don't want it sticking up like that. So push it down into that front flap and get this so that it's nice and flat at the top, and then kind of take a look right here and see how much room you have, because we're going to be stapling down here at on the front side at the bottom, and you don't want your staple up too high so that this can't push in. You don't want it down too low so that it goes down in too far. So it's, you know, I don't know, maybe a third of the way up or so, maybe not even that far. So I'm going to move that out of the way. And I have found that just one staple works fine. So you just kind of line up side to side. Again, you don't want it all the way down at the very bottom. Just go up a little ways. I don't know, maybe that's even a fourth or a fifth of the way up. It's not too far, but you do want to grab onto the treat holder and front and back of the body of the matchbook. Okay, so then we have our treat holder basically made. It's very quick and easy to make these, and now you can decorate them as much or as little as you want, and that's what makes these really nice. You can customize them for all different seasons and, you know, birthdays or Valentine's Day, things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and finish decorating this one up as a little Christmas treat. Now these designer series paper, I'm using a really old one from Stampin' Up. This is, again, probably 15, 20 years old, something like that. But this is 2 5/8 by 2 7/8. And the little one that fits right along this flap down here is 2 5/8 by 1/2 inch. Okay, I'm just going to use a little bit of glue on the back of this. That gives me a little bit of wiggle time to get the paper in place. So this covers up that staple on the front, so you won't see that. If the staple on the back bothers you, you could certainly cut another piece of designer series paper to cover that up, but I haven't done that. I guess to me it wasn't an issue to see that on the back. Okay. And I like to just open this all the way up and get that fairly centered on there. Okay, there we go. All right, and then I'm going to do a couple other things here. I do have some sentiments I want to stamp, and one other thing that I brought in was the Stylish Shapes dies from Stampin' Up. I used the very smallest banner. It's one of the short ones, and it's the very smallest size. That and the small one of the longer ones both fit on this bottom flap. But I wanted to use a little treat for you. And like I said, that's the sentiment from Sweet Jar, a little treat for you. That fits perfectly on there. And then I also used the very middle size of the square to do wishing you the sweetest Christmas. And I put that on the inside. When I first made these, I didn't put anything on the inside, and that's perfectly fine too. But this had this nice sentiment and it fit perfectly, so I thought, oh, why not? I'll go ahead and decorate the inside too. So here's my 2 little die cut pieces with these 2 dies from the Stylish Shapes dies. And I'm just going to use some black ink. I might have to kind of get my head over into this because it's a very tight fit. I could have stamped it first and then die cut it, but this works also. And there we go, a little treat for you. And Wishing you the sweetest Christmas. Okay. And I'm going to glue this one down to the inside. Okay. And then I like to use a couple of little dimensionals on this. So just 2 of the mini dimensionals fits really nice. Get that backing out of the way. There we go. And we can just center that on there. There we go. Get that closed up. And then I like to just glue the lid right on top. You could certainly kind of have it a little bit off to the side or something like that, just depending on, you know, what little scene you want to make with this. So I just did a small bead of glue along the bottom and then just kind of hold it right along the top there. Hold it just for a couple seconds. And then I'm going to pop that up also with some dimensionals. And I think we'll do 4. You can do as many or as few as you want. It's probably not going to go anywhere with even less than that, but get that stuck on there. And there you go. And then you can just stick your little treat right in there. Like I said, this was actually designed to fit one of the Ghirardelli chocolate squares, but I found these Ferrero Rocher that come in a variety pack, and those fit really nice in there as well. So let me just go back to these other ones that I had done earlier. You can see this one I added a few extra things to, so I guess kind of depending on how much time and energy you want to put into these. I mean, this is super cute just the way we did it. I can get, there we go. But this one I did add a few of these little peppermint adhesive gems from Stampin' Up. I also added a little bit of twine with a little bow and kind of made a little tag. And I just did that with a tiny little piece of cardstock. I used glue dots to get all that stuck on there. So that kind of added a little, just a little bit more interest. And then in the set, besides the gingerbread, there's also this snowman that you can put in the jar. The paper here is from Nests of Winter. I put a few little snowflakes on there, and then the same little tag and twine. And then this one has the little ornaments that kind of hang down inside the jar. I used old olive. I did use the little ribbon that comes with it so that you can make it look like it's tied around the string of that ornament. And then I thought it just needed a little bit more, so I colored in the 3 hearts and I traced over the strings of the ornament. They stamped in the same green. I just traced over them with a black marker. And then did the red and white twine and little tag and those same little peppermint gems. So I hope you enjoyed that little quick little Matchbook-Shaped Treat Holder. Like I said, you can really quickly make these, hand them out to coworkers, your servers, you know, little random acts of kindness throughout the winter. If you don't want to, you know, do the sweetest Christmas, you can leave that off or find a different sentiment so that it will go along with other parts of the year. I will point out also in this set, the sweet jar, that there are a few other holidays that are included. So there's some hearts, maybe for Valentine's Day or anniversary, shamrocks, so you can do, you know, the St. Patrick's Day. There's some candles you could use for a birthday. And then these here can be used for chocolate chip cookies. So this is the cookie, and then these are the like chips that go on top. Or you can even use these to look like jelly beans. I've seen people do these in multiple colors, and that turns out really cute too. And then you have a whole bunch of different sayings that you can use. Okay, the next part here, I just want to show you, if you want to do some mass producing of this, a really quick, easy way. So if you're not interested in this, you can skip this part. But a quick, easy way to really get the most out of your cardstock. Zoom out just a little bit here. So I have an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock, and again, your measurements for the body of the matchbook are 2 3/4 by 7 3/8. So along the 8.5 inch side of your paper, I'm going to cut this at 7 3/8. So 7 4/8 is half. You know, be half an inch, 7.5 inches. So you'll come back 1/8 and trim this edge off. And this can just be a scrap for your scrap bin, okay? And now, before I start cutting these at the 2 3/4 inch width for the body of the matchbook, I'm going to do all my scoring. So we're going to score this at 3 inches. 3.5, and 6 3/4. Okay, then you'll turn it onto the 11-inch side and start cutting 2 3/4 inches, 2 3/4 of an inch. So you'll get 1, 2, 3, and 4, and this is exactly, you're left with the 2 3/4 inch. So I love that there isn't much waste. The only waste you get is just this one little strip from the first edge that you cut off, and now you have 4 quick bodies of the matchbook. And then to do the inside, it's pretty much the same. You're going to end up with, actually, you'll end up with enough cardstock left for 1 additional outside body of a matchbook. So you'll end up with a little, not the same number of each, but it's really, it's a great measurement to end up with equal numbers of everything. So really easy to quickly mass produce if you want, if you want to make several to take with you to work or something like that. So kind of just a really fun thing to quickly make and hand out to someone. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for joining me, and have a great rest of your day.